This is an OPN production.
Welcome to this very special Thanksgiving episode of Olia's Opinions, the new podcast where I take a look at this week's newest and hottest current events, movies, television, and music. I am Armon Owlia. I am a journalism major here at Drexel University in Philadelphia, and it is time to enter the new School of Thought. Well, first of all, thank you guys so much for listening in. I appreciate you guys coming in. Just do me one quick favor before we continue. Please, if you haven't already subscribed to this podcast, go to the YouTube channel. We have the full comprehensive library of our podcast there. It's Olia's Opinions. It's not very hard to find. You're going to find some bonus content on there that you would normally not find. I'll get to the more bonus stuff a little bit further down in the video. But as I said, this is now Thursday, November the 23rd or 24th. I'm not really good with dates, especially because I've just been really busy. Yep, Thursday the 23rd, so happy Thanksgiving to every one of our U.S. viewers. We all know how special this time of the year is. This is one of the last holidays of the year, and originally I was against doing an episode on Thanksgiving Day, simply because I wanted to spend the holidays with my mother, didn't want to worry about this, and honestly, what's one less show? What's one less show? But when I thought about it, I decided, you know what? I'm really thankful for a lot of things. 2017 has been a pretty big year for me. For many reasons, I've been able to develop as a person. I've been able to develop my career a little bit. I know a little bit more what I'm going to be doing with the rest of my life. I started television journalism. I think I'm beginning to hit my stride anyway in newspaper journalism, and now I'm doing a podcast. So I'm very thankful for everything, and I wanted to spread this thankfulness around because that's the type of guy that I think I am anyway. I'm not 100% sure. But we have two episodes this week. The first one, which is today, on Thursday the 23rd, is going to be a special Thanksgiving episode dedicated to the RJ Palacio book, as well as the 2017 film, which, by the way, is an adaptation of Wonder. Yes, I've talked about this God knows how many times. I cannot begin to explain how excited I am, for this, for this show, and how excited I am for this movie. It's really cool, I have to admit. The fact that we actually get to talk about Wonder for this episode. And then, of course, on Saturday, we will have in case you missed it, we have the standard episode that we would normally have at the end of the month. I think this is going to be a pretty jam-packed week. I'm very excited for it, and I'm very excited to share this moment with all of you today. So that is going to be our format for this week and this week only. I'm not sure if we're going to be doing another show down the line where we do 2 episodes in 1 week. I doubt that. Actually, I just want to give you one quick update. In winter, we will be suspending the podcast after, I forgot what date, but I know we're going to be suspending the podcast in early December. However, I will come out with a early Christmas list of movies you should probably watch, books you should probably read. That'll be on the Olia's Opinions podcast website. Go to oliasopinionspodcast.wordpress.com. For that, I will let you know when that happens. So I'm going to be pretty busy this holiday season. I'm going to be all over the world, but I'm also going to be, blogging. I'm going to be talking to you about the stuff I would normally talk about on my show. So, so I really hope you guys enjoy these next couple months. I know I am. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to be officially going straight into Wonder. First, I'm going to be talking about the book by RJ Palacio, my first impressions of it, what I thought of it, and just sort of give my review. I've already done a full review on it on the website. You can check it out there. But I'm just going to elaborate a little bit. And then I'm going to talk about the movie, whether or not it was a good adaptation, the things that were done right. There were a couple things that were a little iffy. Yeah, I'm a little nitpicky here, but they were a little bit iffy, so I will mention that. So, as you know, we do talk about music, especially when we go into the commercial breaks, and I do have a treat for you here. If y'all remember Jack with no K, who was, we've mentioned a few times on the show, he has a band called Saint Wilde, that's Wilde, and Saint is spelled out, just letting you know. They recently came out with their first album called What Happens in Between. It is on iTunes and Spotify, and I'll tell you what, if any of you guys listen to Jack's album, the Summer Hits of the 1890s, if any of you listen to that, the difference between that album and this one is like night and day. They did something really interesting with this. They took a concept that Pink Floyd used in the 1970s with Dark Side of the Moon, and they actually really made an album that you can't necessarily skip tracks on. Like, you can't go, let's say, from track 1 to track 5 to track 10 and sort of expect consistency. You have to listen to the whole album. It tells a story. So instead of just playing one track, we're going to give you the first two. The first one is called The Here, The Now, and The In-Between. That's about 1 minute 17 seconds. And then the rest will be The Static Thrill. Again, this is from the album What Happens in Between. The songs are The Here, The Now, and The In-Between. And the second one is The Static Thrill. We'll be right back after this, so don't go away. Enjoy. So that was The Here, the Now, and the In-Between, as well as The Static Thrill by Saint Wilde from the album What Happens in Between, available now on iTunes, Spotify, and I believe SoundCloud. If not, then no. iTunes and Spotify, let's just say. I gotta say, I said this before before we played the song, and I will say this again. I love this album. This is really a very old school album, very much a throwback. We're gonna be playing more songs from the album on Saturday's episode, so I really hope you're excited about this, because I sure as hell am. So yeah, amazing album, Saint Wilde, well done. So now we're going to get straight into it. We're going to go talk about the book Wonder. Now, this book was released about 5 years ago, had some really good reviews. It was a New York Times best-selling book by RJ Palacio, and I actually, I learned something really interesting from this. So this is apparently based on a real-life incident that the author, RJ Palacio, actually went through. I forgot when, but I know she went through this, and she felt bad to the point she was thinking from the point of view of the kid who also had a craniofacial difference. In case you're wondering, craniofacial difference means, let me put it to you bluntly. I'm sorry if I don't sound PC when I say this. Disfigured. That's the best way I can say this. But yeah, it's so amazing. This book. It really tugged at my heartstrings a lot because it's such an amazing plot. Let me put it to you. Let me give you the plot here. So it's centered around 10-year-old August Pullman. He also goes by Augie. He's been homeschooled his entire life from his parents, Nate and Isabel Pullman. Isabel is the mother, and she's really the bigger focus of the two parents in the book. There isn't really much that's talked about the father other than he's really funny, and he's very much probably a little bit closer to Augie in terms of the boys being boys type thing, but I think that's what most fathers are to with their sons. So yeah, I'm not going to get into that, but still, it's really sort of about not just a family dynamic, but also the thing is that for the first time in his life, Augie is going to be going to an actual school. It's not just any school. It's the beginning of middle school, which is going to be very difficult for him. Not only because, if many of you remember from middle school, that was the time when bullying was the most prevalent. I mean, I know I was bullied a lot during middle school, definitely in my early years. But as I got older, I wasn't really bullied that much, which I'm very, very happy about. But yeah, this is, it's really amazing how RJ Palacio does it. She really makes the characters, like the bullies especially Julian. Julian is such a perfectly written bully if you only read Wonder. Because essentially he's just mean without abandon. And just not just kid mean, but just in general so mean, and he doesn't even realize how mean he is until, well, if I told you about that, I'd be spoiling another book that RJ Palacio did, which is sort of a follow-up to Wonder. You can read about that in the description for this episode. Yeah, so I think this is a great book. The characters are very well written. There wasn't really much description on the world around them. It was really more character-based, and I love a lot of character-based stuff. The characters of Mr. Tushman. Tushman was especially one of my favorite characters, obviously because how many jokes does the name get? Well, I know they brought it up a lot in the book, so I won't get too much into that. But yeah, it's sort of the characters really, his friends, his teachers, really coming together and giving him support. His parents, his sister, Via. Now, the storyline around that is amazing because it's essentially about how, while her parents give so much attention to her little brother, and she essentially goes along with it, she's fine. But in reality, she's just aching for attention because she never gets it. So she gets a boyfriend, she goes through, there's a place, she tries to really make it on her own as an individual, and it really shows. But in the end, she realizes she can be both an individual and, Augie's bigger sister, more supportive sister. I think it's great, and I think it's such an amazing compromise between the two because there is no sappy ending in this case to Via's storyline. It's very much well tied in to the ending of the book, which is the same as the ending in the movie. I think it's just absolutely amazing, and I think it's just absolutely wonderful to read. I will recommend it. I gave it a hot on my review. Not much I can say much more besides that on the book, other than it's a must read. If you haven't read it yet, go to your Barnes and Noble, go to the iBookstore, go to Amazon, go to Kindle, go to Audible, go anywhere where books are sold and buy it. I mean it. You will not regret reading it. It's that good. So I didn't actually read the book until I heard that they were making an adaptation. Now, normally, this would have flew under the radar for me had I not heard of the cast and the crew especially. So, the book was adapted by a man named Stephen Chbosky. If you don't know the name, it's actually incredible that you don't, because he wrote in 1999 for MTV Books a very infamous book that was adapted into a movie about 4 years ago. You might have heard of it. It's called The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Yeah, he wrote the book. He then adapted it for the screen, directed it himself, and that went on to be such a huge success. I personally loved that film. So when I heard he was doing this, I'm like, oh, like this is going to be interesting. Like, I never read the book, so I was really interested to see from the trailer, and the trailer looked amazing. I enjoyed sort of what they had to show. It was, if the trailer shows the best of a movie, then this was probably not going to disappoint. So I was excited at first, and then I heard the cast. I heard about Julia Roberts, and of course everyone knows who Julia Roberts is. Owen Wilson, of course. I mean, from Zoolander, he plays Lightning McQueen in Cars, and in the Cars trilogy, I should say, in the Cars franchise. Of course, was in Zoolander, which is one of my favorite comedies ever. Some of the best jokes ever written have come from that movie, in my personal opinion. Also, like, really prevalent nowadays in a lot of Woody Allen works, especially Midnight in Paris, which he did spectacular in. Surprised he wasn't as more nominated as he was, because that was an amazing performance he gave. And then Mandy Patinkin, who you guys may know a little bit better if you watch Criminal Minds, the first 2 seasons, as Jason Gideon. And if not, he's in Homeland. He is Claire Danes' mentor in Homeland, as well as, if any of you watch The Princess Bride, he is in The Princess Bride. He is Inigo Montoya. Yep, the Inigo Montoya. That's the same actor. And of course, we have the film debut of Hamilton's Daveed Diggs, who, oh my god, I mean, Daveed Diggs is probably is an amazing rapper. He's an amazing actor, and I'm really excited to see that he was cast in this movie. But by far, the biggest casting choice that they made, which I was the most happy about, I'm not sure if anyone heard about this, but about 2-3 years ago, there was a movie that came out called Room. Had Brie Larson. She won the Oscar for it for Best Actress, and it had Jacob Tremblay playing her son. It's essentially about sexual abuse. It's a wonderful film, and Jacob Tremblay, this was one of his first movies, and he did such a beautiful job. I have to say, I thought that kid did absolutely amazing in that movie, and knowing that he's going to be playing Augie Pullman, it's going to be, I knew it was going to be good, considering the cast, which is already star-studded as it is. So before I saw the movie, of course, I read the book, and you guys know what I thought about the book. I thought it was amazing. And the fact that Stephen Chbosky is adapting it. Now, Chbosky is very well known for very character-driven stories. I mean, if you look at Perks of Being a Wallflower, the setting is just, you throw it out the window. It could be placed anywhere. The characters are what drives it. It's the one thing that pushes a story forward are the characters. I mean, look at, for example, Perks of Being a Wallflower. You have Charlie, you have Patrick, you have Sam, Mary Elizabeth, Alice, you have Bob, you have, what's the name of Charlie's sister? Candace. Yeah, Candace, there we go. You have all of these characters, and they just get pushed so well, and the story really revolves around the development of these characters and all these different revelations. Wonder is very similar, in terms of a book. It's really character-driven. The city does not play a role in anything. I mean, it doesn't matter where it's set. It's all character-driven. Now, I will say this. The book, there were a few things from the book I didn't like. I thought that, I mean, like, there's a scene where Augie gets beat up in the forest, and he has a special hearing aid towards the end of the book, gets ripped off of him, and he doesn't know where it's gone until the final part of the book. I really didn't like that scene at all, because I think the fact that he just gets beat up and saved at all is just enough. There's no need to work in that. And I know that's an actual difficulty that people with a craniofacial difficulty go through. I understand that. But I will say, I think it was a little bit overplayed, considering it was a book. And, okay, it's going to make me sound really bad, but I don't care. I think that really didn't do well. Plus, they didn't really explain which craniofacial deficiency it is, because it would really help sort of understanding it. It would provide a little bit more awareness. And just sort of, there were very minor details. I liked the book a lot, but very minor details I think needed to be fixed before they brought it up to the screen. Now, I had a really strong anticipation. I was really excited to see this film. And I saw it the night before it officially came out. It came out actually last Friday. When I did the episode last time it came out, I'd actually seen it 2 days prior, and I was getting ready for this. I think my review was already up by then. But the cool thing was, despite seeing all the trailers, despite hearing all the interviews, despite hearing all the praise beforehand from the book, I had no idea what to expect. Oh my god. The film is all that I thought it should be, and then some, and more. I'm really happy with how this film turned out, because, first of all, as I said, the casting is perfect. Every role was perfectly chosen. I mean, Julia Roberts, this is some of her best acting, and she doesn't play a lot of other roles. I'm not sure if any of you've noticed. This is really one of her rare roles of her as a mother, and we truly see her as a mother. And to see the evolution of her being Augie's caregiver into becoming a woman completely cut off from Augie, becoming her own person after almost 10 years, it's so wonderful to see. Such an amazing evolution that we see taking place from there. And of course, Augie himself absolutely evolves. He evolves from this really innocent person, from this carefree innocent, into a young man who's ready to take on the world. He's ready to take on anything that people throw at him, and he's ready. Amazing sensitivity, amazing strength. Even some of the cringier scenes really got me going. Like, for example, there's a fight in there towards, I believe, the midway point of the movie, and there are some elements that are borrowed from the follow-up book to Wonder called Augie and Me. Again, great book. I'll recommend that too, because it's such a great companion, and it really provides more depth to a lot of the characters that are not mentioned in the story. So I really do recommend that. But still, just, it's a little bit cheesy, plus the fact that they put the apology letter over it. I think they should have just let the fight go on as is, and probably done a scene after that with the character Jack Will actually writing the apology. I think that would have worked a little bit better, but otherwise I thought that was a pretty good scene, and I liked that a little bit actually. And just sort of, instead of getting serious reprimands for everything, it's sort of, instead of hearing like the shouting scene, we see something that always happens, but we never see it in a movie. We only see this in real life. Silent reflection. I mean, silent reflection is the one thing that we always see in real life, but we never get to see in the movies because it's boring. Like, if you see it in a movie, it's very boring. And I understand that some people might have a problem with that, but I just think it makes it even more realistic, because a lot of these characters in real life would not shout. Not at all. They're very quiet. They're very hard-focused individuals. They're just letting it be silent completely creates the tension and completely creates the atmosphere for the despair to grow, for them to realize the error of the ways. So yeah, I mean, wow. I'm Jacob Tremblay. I'll tell you what, it takes a lot of effort to act, to pull off those emotions under a lot of prosthetic makeup. And the makeup job you see on Jacob Tremblay, it's a little bit enhanced with CGI, but it's so amazing, because the one thing I'm happy they did not put makeup over were his eyes. His eyes are the defining feature. And even if the face seems kind of ugly, because it can be, the eyes really, they really tell a whole story. They really get you to sympathize with the character. And I almost cried a couple times during that movie, and I'm not a guy who cries during a movie, so it's amazing. To see that emotional connection through all that makeup. I think Jacob Tremblay needs to be given a lot of credit, because for someone of his age and someone who had to go through all that makeup and to go through all that process to become Augie Pullman, that is absolutely phenomenal. And I think this could be the beginning of a very long and a very successful career. So Jacob Tremblay, well done. If you were my age, if you were a little bit older, I'd order you a drink and I would cheers you, man. I mean, you did an amazing job. You have nothing to be ashamed of. Well done. Yeah. This film is just phenomenal. The pacing is great. I almost forgot to mention this. Remember how I said that the book is not really that visual? Luckily, Stephen Chbosky decides to balance a lot of the character building that he's really well known for because it's set in New York City. So he decides to essentially also put a kid's imagination in there. So, of course, we'll get some references. We'll get some fourth wall jokes that are pretty funny, but also a little bit sad. Like, it depends on which joke you see. They're actually really good. I think a lot of them are very funny. But just before we get into it, just to see this huge scope, because it takes place in New York, a lot of the movie. So we get it. We get a zoomed out view of New York. We zoom back in onto Augie, and we just get this huge bit of scale. Even though we're focusing on these characters, just a little cog in this giant world of New York City. He's going to be able to take on the world when all is said and done. And I think that's just such an amazing metaphor, an amazing way to get the shot, and an amazing way to tell the story. Chbosky did very well directing it. I think he did a great job adapting along with Jack Conrad, who, wow, I'm sorry, I'm so blown away that I don't really have many other comments to give other than this is a great movie. Hot on my end. This was a New York Times critics pick, believe it or not by A.O. Scott. I wish A.O. Scott had picked that, but luckily he did pick Lady Bird, which is really good. Again, you should see that. I talked about that on the Screen Time episode about 2 weeks ago. Great film. But let's not talk about that. Let's talk about Wonder. Wonder is just phenomenal. And I think this is a film that is definitely worth seeing. It's definitely worth experiencing. But first, read the book. I really mean it. Read the book. Read the follow-up books by RJ Palacio. And then go see the movie. You will not be disappointed. It's such an amazing piece of art. Well done to all of you. Well, that is it. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. I hope you guys all enjoyed this episode. Don't forget to follow me on social media, all at House of Armon, www.facebook.com/House of Armon. Twitter, you can follow me at House of Armon. Instagram, you follow me at House of Armon. Snapchat, follow me at House of Armon. You can follow the website. You can follow my own website. Look at all the articles I ever write. houseofarmon.wordpress.com. The Always Opinions website, of course, alwaysopinionspodcast.wordpress.com. Facebook, facebook.com/alwaysopinionspodcast, and Twitter, you can follow me at Always Opinions. You get all the updates. You get so much more content. You get all that. So that is it. Do not forget, on Saturday, we will be talking the news. We will talk about In Case You Missed It. So until then, have a great Thanksgiving. Have an amazing meal. And that's it for this School of Thought. So on behalf of on my part, I just want to say, keep loving, keep learning, keep debating. We'll see you next time on All These Opinions. Goodbye.
This has been an OPN production, recorded in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania.